North Ayrshire, please. Now, North Ayrshire have been working with a poet called Simon Lamb from VELCRO Poetry, also with Angela Smith from Impact Arts, and Anthony Gardiner, who's the faculty head of English and Literacy at St Matthew's in Saltcoats. And they've been working with S3s from St Matthew's and P5 to 7s from cluster primaries around St Matthew's, focusing on exploring emotions through poetry and culminating in a book and community artwork. Now, I know Simon can't be with us today, so I'm guessing I'm handing over to you, Angela. Yeah, okay. Thanks, Angela.
Yeah, thanks, Barbara. So I'm going to be sharing a PowerPoint presentation, but I'm going to copy and paste into the chat some links that I've got, if it lets me, and then I don't need to come out of my PowerPoint. Got all the stuff sorted at the beginning. Okay, bear with me. Okay, so can you all see my PowerPoint all right?
Yes, we can. Thanks, Angela.
Right, I'm going to go full screen with it and we'll just go for it. So I won't be able to see anyone. So I was involved in the VELCRO Poetry programme, and just a little bit about the VELCRO Poetry Project, just for those of you who don't know about it. It was a creative arts project, and it was essentially exploring how positive and negative language can affect young people's mental health, and also to develop their creative literacy skills. So poetry was used, and also visual art workshops and sound workshops were used for exploring those issues. We worked with schools. We worked with 3 primary schools and 1 secondary school in North Ayrshire, and all of the workshops were delivered by professional artists. And the work has been celebrated and shared widely. I'll kind of go into detail later on in the PowerPoint as to exactly how we've been sharing that, but we've been trying to kind of get all the work showcased to family members and the rest of the school community as well. So, as I said, 3 North Ayrshire primaries and 1 secondary school were involved. We were one of the creative partners, but North Ayrshire Council Literacy Team were the other partner involved. And as you mentioned, Barbara, we had a couple of poets involved. Simon Lamb and Rab Wilson were also out delivering workshops for the project. So we worked with 14 classes of pupils in total, and that's approximately 340 pupils. So it was quite a lot of pupils that we worked with over the course of about 5 months, 6 months. In total, there were about 98 individual workshops scheduled. A couple of them didn't end up happening due to P7 transition visits kind of clashing, but I think we had about maybe 94 workshops that actually ended up taking place. So in terms of outputs, we have various online galleries, and I've put links in the chat that people can kind of click through and see for themselves. So we've got a gallery of poetry that was created, an online gallery of artwork. We've got a SoundCloud for the project with lots of sound recordings that were created by the pupils, and then a printed book of poetry and art, which has literally just been delivered in schools yesterday and today. We went into school, we were dropping off artwork in one of the schools today, and they said, "Oh, we had a delivery, let's have a look. And it was the first time that I'd seen the actual printed book as well, so it was lovely to see. So I'm just kind of going to take you through just a few of the examples of work that was created by the young people. I'll try not to talk over it the whole time because it's quite hard to listen and read at the same time. So I'll let you have a little moment to read. So this is an example of one of the poems that was created by the pupils. We had 2 quite different styles with the poets. Simon really explored metaphors and expression of feelings. Rab was going right down the Scots language route with the pupils. So it was 2 quite distinctly different styles that they had, but across the board, all the young people absolutely loved having the poets in, working with them, and only had good things to say. We were quite struck by how open the young people were, being willing to share their feelings and their thoughts. Quite a lot of the poems that were created particularly by the high school students, and I'm sure Mr. Gardiner will maybe talk about this later on, kind of touched on quite dark things. They were generally a bit more negative than the ones created by the primary pupils. But again, we were quite struck by how open the young people were at being willing to share that. You know, they were well aware that their classmates, their peers were going to be seeing this work, and yet they divulged really quite, personal thoughts and feelings, which I think would suggest that they felt they were in a very safe space to be able to do that. So this is an example of one of the primary P5 pupils' poems, which is just lovely. And it is maybe more of an example of the kind of positive types of poetry that was created as well. So it wasn't all negative, it wasn't all doom and gloom. But actually we were chatting quite a bit about that, about the types of poetry that was created, and actually I think the young people really enjoyed having that outlet to express how they were feeling. And so really it was no huge surprise that some of them were quite negative, because it's been a tough couple of years, and I'm sure young people have got something to say about that. So I'll just show you one more example. This is just going to become my mantra for life now. Like, you can't argue with that, can't you? I think we should all print this out and put it up on our walls just to remind us. Don't give up. So as well as the poetry that took place, so that was kind of phase 1 of the project, and then impact arts kind of went in during phase 2 of the project. So we took what had been created by the young people through their poems, and then we encouraged and explored ways to bring that to life visually. So the young people were involved in various types of visual art sessions. We had polymer clay modelling, lino printing, heat transfer printing, collage, all sorts of different examples. And the pupils were encouraged to take their poem as a stimulus, and to either pick out one bit of it or the essence of it, and to create something visual to show how that would look. So another way that we did that through was sock puppets. And the young people then used the sock puppets to create little dramatisations as well. There's just a few examples of the types of artwork that was created. This is a heat transfer machine. So the young people created their design, and then they could choose either a t-shirt or a tote bag to get their design transferred onto. This was one of the designs that I think finally ended up on I think it was a tote bag. So collage was another art technique that was used, specifically with some of the primary groups. Just really lovely examples, of expressing the poems and trying to bring them to life. And then this was an example of the lino printing that was done. I love this one. This is one of my favourites. So as well as the visual art sessions and the poetry sessions, the young people also recorded their own, we called them soundscapes. So it was using spoken word, sound effects, some percussion. In some of the groups we created body percussion as well, and we layered the sounds on top of each other to create individual soundscapes. And I think all of them use actual words from the poems that were created. So for those of you who have a smartphone to hand, you can either click on the links that I've put in the chat, or as part of this PowerPoint as well, I've added some QR codes, so people can feel free to scan them if they want to, and then that'll take you straight through to our SoundCloud, and you can listen to some of the sound recordings. I'm aware of time, so I think what I'll do is you can do this in your own time, and I will just carry on because I'm already 9 minutes in. Also our printed book, so every single pupil is receiving a copy of the printed book to keep. It's theirs to keep forever, and the schools will get a few copies specifically to be kept in the school. But we've also created a PDF version of the book as well, and that's now live on our Impact Hearts website, and the schools have been asked to send the link and the QR code out to parents and carers so that everyone can get access to the PDF version of the book. And again, I won't kind of spend any time on this, but if you're so inclined, you can use the QR codes to go through to our online Flickr galleries. So I've split them into collections. So one is specifically all the examples of poetry, and the other collection is specifically examples of artwork that was created by the young people. So the idea was, because of the sheer volume of young people we were working with, there was no way to get every single young person's poem and visual art output within the printed book, because the book could have been huge. So the idea was that if your work wasn't specifically chosen to be in the printed book, it would at least appear on the online galleries. And so that's really easy to share with people at home and friends and family and relatives. So everyone should get their moment to shine and to be showcased. So feedback from pupils and teachers, I'll just let you have a little read through this. So we're still in the process of gathering evaluation and feedback, but we have managed to gather a certain amount so far. But in terms of our kind of final numbers, we're still collating that data, so those will be updated. And in a few moments, Mr. Gardiner from St Matthew's Academy is going to talk a little bit more about the impact and from the school's point of view, how the project has gone. So as it stands, these are kind of stats at the moment. As I said, that will probably change with the remaining data that we get in. But as you can see across the board, it's been really high engagement, really positive impacts being shared by all of the teachers. We've also just put out a questionnaire to parents as well, parents and carers. So we're hoping to get some good feedback from them as well, and that will be included in the final report. So I'll stop talking, and Mr. Gardiner is here from St Matthew's Academy, and I will hand over to him to tell you a bit more.
Thanks, Angela. Hello, everybody. I'm Anthony, the Faculty Head of English and Literacy at St Matthew's Academy. First of all, thanks very much for sharing all your wonderful projects. It's been a very inspiring hour and 20 minutes now. I'm going to talk about three things: the impact on learners, the willingness to take part in creative tasks, and the legacy. And I'm going to talk about them very, very quickly because I'm conscious of time. Right, first of all, we were really excited to get involved in VELCRO poetry from the get-go. I think given the context of the previous 2 or 3 years with the pandemic, the idea of young people exploring the sort of negative impact that words can have on their own well-being is, particularly important. We have found that the pupils involved have, for the most part, developed in confidence as a result of participating in the creative activities. And in St Matthew's, we initially worked with 2 locally based poets, Simon Lamb and Rab Wilson. We made the decision quite early on to focus on Scots language when writing poetry, as we felt that this is very close to the language that the young people use when communicating with one another. Right, so we found that initially, although pupils were wary of writing in Scots, and they took quite a lot from it. Exploring the Scots language had a very positive impact on their literacy as they became more curious about language in general and more keen to use varied vocabulary when writing their own poetry. And pupils also, the ones that I spoke to, certainly felt unshackled from the chains of spelling anxiety to an extent, and we felt that this had a very positive effect on their efforts to express themselves. As time went on and pupils became used to the language, They became much more confident in expressing their views in the materials they were exposed to. Some of the poetry and articles we looked at together as a class were difficult and quite hard-hitting, but pupils began to openly discuss instances of verbal abuse, whether online or otherwise, which they had experienced. So maybe this is why some of the creative output from the secondary school pupils was, maybe a wee bit darker than the primary kids, but then English in secondary school is all doom and gloom, usually, for the most part. We focus on the deep stuff. Where was I? Yeah, there we are. So pupils began to openly discuss things that they had experienced or which they were aware of a lot more openly. They began to recognise also through Rab and Simon that poetry could become an effective medium through which they could verbalise their own life experiences and express their emotions. And also with regards to actively participating in the creative tasks with Impact Arts, I think Angela would agree that a lot of our kids were initially, some were a lot more willing than others. I think that's maybe the nature of teenagers, but I really cannot speak highly enough of Impact Arts and their enthusiastic approach to engaging our young people. It really, really helped. And Angela in particular, your enthusiasm within the classroom with some of our more difficult to engage young people was inspirational, I've got to say. One of the things that I found most interesting about their willingness to participate in creative activities was that a lot of the time, at the very start of the creative process, new to me as well, that there are no kind of parameters. Like one of the tasks that they were set was draw how you feel. And all of a sudden you have like a lot of heads kind of turning towards the teacher, looking for a wee bit further instruction. But, with exposure to these tasks and with practice, they became a lot more confident. They were thoroughly engaged throughout the creative tasks and the variety that they were exposed to as well. So printing T-shirts, printing tote bags and the lino printing really helped to engage the kids. So in terms of the legacy, that it was kind of clear from the get-go that there was sustainability within the project. So one of the classes that Simon and Impact Arts worked with was a group of 15 boys in an S3 class, what we would call a nurture set. And these are boys who next year will be working towards national qualifications and probably will be working towards achieving National 4 in English. But we've already started dialogue with Angela Noble, who's the literacy coordinator at North Ayrshire Council, and Simon Lamb, who is desperately keen to come back in and work with these young boys. And we're going to look at ways that we can use their experience in VELCRO poetry to try and create alternative pathways, to look at other qualifications that we can bring into our curriculum. We can use their experience of VELCRO poetry to pursue. We've already looked at Scottish studies, and there's also a mental health SQA accredited unit that we can incorporate into their year next session. So overall, it's been a thoroughly enjoyable experience for the teaching staff within the department. I think it's been a very beneficial experience for our young people as well. And I'll leave you with a quote. There was a young boy in that group of boys that I've already mentioned who would not say booty a goose usually, and was quite disengaged with school in general and found it very difficult to communicate. And he turned up for his VELCRO poetry session on a Friday, and afterwards he said to his class teacher, and his class teacher was very moved. He said, "I have been feeling sad all week and now I know why." Now, I'd like to make it clear that's not because he turned up and saw Impact Arts or Simon Lamb in the classroom. That's because I think the activities, and especially the creative activities that the kids were exposed to, really helped them to understand that there are lots of ways that they can communicate how they're feeling. And I think that's incredibly important going forward. So thank you very much for listening to me, Blair, and thank you for showing me all your lovely projects. Cheers.
Thanks, Anthony. That is so interesting. And actually, I feel quite moved by what you said at the end there, because clearly this, and thanks to Angela and Simon and Rab, has had a huge impact on the learners. I'm just blown away by the range of media that you use, Angela. How you had time to do all of that is just incredible, and some lovely results that I'm looking forward to having a look at later on, the soundscapes and the poetry and the art. Absolutely fantastic. And clearly, Anthony, you have a plan going forward that is growing from this project, which is what we love to hear. So we've literally got 30 seconds if anyone has a question or a comment.
Sorry, can I just add, I also have the book here. It's, yeah, there it is there. And it's great. And the kids have been coming up to collect it this afternoon, and they are buzzing to see their work displayed. I don't know how to share this on a computer though, because there's no drive.
That's just brilliant. Brilliant, Anthony. That they've got something tangible to take away as, like a trophy of the work that they've done. So, we could go on all day, couldn't we? It's brilliant. Thank you. We're going to have to move on though, sadly.